Uh, LSU on the road at Bama. Who's going to win this thing here? Let's talk about it. You wish you could combine these two teams into one team, and then maybe you'd have like one national title contending team. As it is right now, I don't think either one of these teams stands a chance of winning the national title. Each has half a team, right? It's weird. Where did Alabama's offense go? Where did LSU's defense go? Alabama's played really good defense. Their offense is one of the worst we've seen in the Nick Saban era. LSU, defensively, used to put a bunch of players in the NFL, especially from the secondary, the whole DBU thing. Their defense has fallen off the face of the earth. But offensively, they're one of the best scoring offenses in the country, and quarterback Jaden Daniels is in everybody's Heisman top 3 or 4. It's been really strange to watch Alabama's offense just kind of melt away into obscurity, and at the same time watch teams go up and down the field like it's a track meet against LSU. Alabama just has one loss. And LSU has the 2, but both, of course, still alive to win the SEC West. And the winner of this game is going to have a huge leg up to do that, to represent the SEC West in Atlanta in the SEC title game. Alabama has a early season loss at home to Texas. That's a non-conference loss, so no conference losses for Alabama. LSU, on the other hand, 2 losses. One of them is a non-con loss to Florida State to start off the season, and then they lost a couple of weeks later to Ole Miss. So LSU's got one conference loss, Bama none. Ole Miss, by the way, also just with one conference loss for now. But this game's going to go a long way towards determining who represents the West in Atlanta for the SEC title game. But it's just, you try to look at this game, and it's interesting because you go, well, LSU's got a really good offense. Yeah, they do. But that plays into the strength of Alabama, that defense. And then you go, well, Alabama's got a really good defense. Yeah, but LSU's strength is the offense. So on one hand, I'm sitting here going, okay, LSU's got a good offense, but they haven't seen anything like an Alabama defense. They're going to struggle to score the ball. Then I start to think of myself, what has happened lately when we have seen good offenses go up against good defenses? The offenses tend to win those battles. Good offenses tend to be able to move the ball and score against any defense they play. Not always, but a lot of times. And then the other opposite side of the ball, Alabama's offense is atrocious. LSU's defense is atrocious. Somebody has to win that battle, if you want to call it that. What would concern me in particular, I think, for LSU in this game when it comes to when Alabama has the ball, they've struggled to run the ball, and LSU is okay up front in the front 7. Guys like Mason Smith and Harold Perkins. They've got some guys up front. It's the back end that has kind of let LSU down time and time again over the course of this season. And when you look at Alabama's offense and you try to pinpoint the one thing, if you can find the one thing that they actually do well, it's Jalen Milroe hitting those deep balls a couple of times a game. He has a real hard time in the intermediate passing game. He appears to struggle to read defenses. To me, I think he's kind of too quick to scramble out of the pocket. He doesn't progress through his reads well. But on a straight drop back, hit somebody on a 60-yard go route type of deal, Jalen Milroe can get the job done. And that attacks the weakest weak point of LSU, which is that secondary. So even though Alabama has struggled to move the ball a lot over the course of this season, doesn't it feel like they're going to have success throwing the ball, especially in the vertical deep passing game against this LSU defense? I mean, it kind of feels that way to me. I don't know that Alabama will consistently drive the length of the field against LSU. A bunch of, 5, 6, 7 minute, 15 play drives where they pick up 5 first downs. I don't necessarily see Alabama scoring points that way, but doesn't it feel like they're going to hit 3, 4, 5 big, deep ones in this game? I mean, it does kind of seem that way to me. For LSU offensively, I think it all falls on Jaden Daniels. He has got to have one of the games of his life in this one against Alabama, right? They've got elite playmakers at wide receiver. They've got a couple of good running backs. The offensive line has played well. Hard to find a real weakness offensively for LSU. And if that offense gets going, I do not think Alabama will be able to keep up in the long run. In fact, I think the more points that end up being scored in this game total, the higher the likelihood becomes that LSU pulls off the upset. LSU is a 3-point underdog on the road in Tuscaloosa, which tells you basically Vegas thinks these two teams are about even. You get 3 points really for just playing at home. So Bama, the 3-point favorite, which is down a little bit. It was 3.5 earlier in the week, so it's been bet down a little bit to 3. Alabama, a 3-point favorite. But Jaden Daniels is going to have a great game. And it feels like if this game gets into the 30s or higher, that probably benefits LSU. I just trust their offense more to continue to score over the course of a game than I do an offense like Alabama's. Again, there's no doubt in my mind Alabama's going to hit some big shots in this game because that's the way to attack LSU to start with, and that happens to be the strength of the Alabama team. I'm curious how much we'll see Alabama run the ball in this game. LSU's defense is not really great at anything, but it's the front seven is better than the back end in the LSU defense. And Alabama has kind of struggled to run the ball at times this year. Now, they've played some better front sevens, in my opinion, than LSU. This won't be the best front seven they've played. LSU's defense is not great. So I kind of wonder how Jace McClellan and company will do running the ball against that LSU defense. And here's another question I have, and this is about Jalen Milroe. All this talk about Jalen Milroe kind of in the offseason revolved around, well, he struggles to throw the ball. He's not a great passer of the ball, but he's a hell of an athlete, dual threat quarterback. He's going to run for 1,000 yards. And kind of the thinking was, if we can just get 3,000 yards passing out of him, but 1,000 yards rushing and another 10 touchdowns or something like that, Alabama's offense will be okay. For whatever reason, Jalen Milroe has not ran the ball this year. Not anywhere near or close to kind of what I thought we would see from him over the course of the season. And I don't really know why that is because, again, in a lot of Bama's games this year, those running backs have sort of struggled to run the ball. And it seems like they never are really willing to cut Milroe loose in terms of running with the ball. And I don't really know why that is. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, quarterback for LSU, prototypical, legitimate dual threat quarterback. Literally exactly what you want when you talk about a quote-unquote dual threat quarterback. Jalen Milroe has really turned out to be kind of a zero-threat quarterback. He can't sit in the pocket and pick you apart, so he's not a traditional pocket passer, and he doesn't really run the ball. So he's kind of a zero threat. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, is going to go over 1,000 yards rushing, is going to have over 10 rushing touchdowns, and is going to throw the ball for well over 4,000 yards. He's at or near the top of everyone's Heisman list, like I talked about earlier. But I don't really understand, so it makes me question kind of the running game for Alabama heading into this matchup with LSU. And I know their offensive line has struggled, but that's been primarily in the pass game. I mean, Jalen Milroe has spent a large portion, a lot of these games, running for his life. Can Jalen Milroe avoid the turnovers in this game? Jalen Milroe has made some drastic, disastrous mistakes this season. I can't even. I've lost count now of how many interceptions he's thrown into the end zone, down in the red zone or 30, 40-yard line, deep throws, whatever. It's just multiple interceptions into the end zone. He's got to avoid that. Some of the, just kind of boneheaded mistakes that I've seen Milroe make over the course of the season, taking unnecessary sacks on third down that potentially take you out of field goal range, things like that. The more points to get scored in this game, the more I think it favors LSU. If Alabama's defense can show up, can harass Jaden Daniels in the pocket, you definitely can't let Jaden Daniels sit back in that pocket. I think Alabama's going to have to come after him for a couple of reasons. Number one, LSU's wide receivers are too good. Bama's secondary is elite. That entire defense is really, really good, and Bama has one of the best secondaries in the entire country. No matter how good your secondary is, you cannot let elite wide receivers just run around for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. Eventually, they're going to get open. So Bama's going to have to get pressure on Daniels while containing him in the pocket, because unlike Milroe, Daniels will get loose and take off and hurt you with his legs. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But so the more points that get scored in this game, the more I kind of think it favors LSU. If Alabama's defense can suffocate the corn dog offense, the LSU offense, and this turns into more of a sort of line of scrimmage football game played in a phone booth type of thing, I think that benefits Alabama in the long run. I do think Milroe hits a couple of deep balls. I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a pretty good game. This is going to be interesting here. Both teams think they can win. Both teams think they still have shots to make the playoffs. LSU with the 2 losses. I'm going to have to see a 2-loss team make the playoffs before I believe it. I mean, we've 8-9 years now into a 4-team playoff. A 2-loss team has never made it. I guess if LSU wins out, that would include this win over Bama and a win over, most likely a Georgia in the SEC title game. maybe LSU finds a way to get in, but I don't think a 2-loss LSU SEC champion would get in over any 1-loss or 0-loss conference champion. So I'm still not sold on that. Alabama has just the 1 loss, so obviously if they were to run the table, they most likely would make the playoffs at 12-1 with an SEC title. I just don't see that happening. LSU has looked like a better team this season to me than Alabama. I know they've got 1 additional loss that Alabama, and Alabama's got the 1, LSU's got the 2, but as the season has gone along, it does look to me like LSU has gotten better, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. Whereas Alabama is just way too inconsistent. Jalen Milroe played really, really good a few weeks ago on the road at Texas A&M, probably the best game he's played. He comes back home against Arkansas and looks like he's never seen a football before. And Alabama beats a terrible Arkansas team 24-21. I mean, Arkansas has 0 SEC wins. Alabama beat them at home 24-21. The following week was the Alabama-Tennessee game. First half of that game, Milroe couldn't complete a pass. He looked lost. He looked confused, deer in headlights. Second half, he comes out and he looks just like he looked against Texas A&M. Way too up and down, way too inconsistent. It's hard for me to imagine either of these teams, honestly, winning a national championship this year, and I think probably even making the playoffs is a long shot for both of these teams at this point. But that doesn't matter. Technically, they're both still alive. In their minds, everything on the line in this game. This is going to be another classic Bama versus LSU matchup. I could see this one going either way. I am going to lean LSU here. I just feel like they are a better team. I think they're playing better right now. And as good as Alabama's defense is, I do think Jaden Daniels will be able to make enough plays against them to get the win. Give me LSU 35, Bama 30. Have a good morning.